everybody, Tony D with another hot take. I'm going to try to get into this theory. I just did a take of this, but it was a little too long, so I wanted to try to be more concise and articulate. I just watched the latest video from the Fourth Age. If you haven't seen this guy, he's pretty amazing. And what he was doing, he was analyzing Marvel Comics and its current... He's analyzing Marvel Comics almost at a philosophical level of how they're turning the characters not into heroes. They're not heroes anymore. And the thrust of his thing was it's because they've made basically vanities almost like a virtue. And I think, and it's going to sound incredibly sexist, but I think it's because the women in charge of Marvel have brought to the table a very female-centric way of looking at the world. Now, that's not all women, but I think a lot of women. I'm old enough to have met, a lot of people. Maybe it's just my personal experience. Maybe I'm some sort of oddball. I am kind of an oddball. But maybe my personal experience isn't reflective of human nature. But I kind of think it is. And I'm not saying this is 100%. There are women who could have ran Marvel Comics quite well, who are comic book aficionados, and they understand the business very well. In fact, there were women working at Marvel Comics for decades. I remember back in the 80s and 90s, there were women who worked at Marvel Comics in high echelon positions there too. But there's no getting around the very female-centric decisions that are being made at Marvel Comics by people who are under the delusion that women should be enjoying comics, and if only we retool them, we will get thousands of women flocking to us reading our comics. That's just not happening. It's not happening. Women don't really read superhero comics. They're not interested in them. And changing them into more feminizing the superhero comics is definitely not the answer. Now, you could have made a separate imprint alongside the Marvel Comics and made it as girly as you wanted, and when nobody would have said a damn thing other than, oh, they're making girl comics now. Nice. And in fact, there is a precedent. Years ago, there were romance comics, and women read them. They had a female fan base. And I'm not suggesting that women only want to read romance comics, but they do want something different from their entertainment. If they don't, then why did you change the comics in the first place? Women like different things from men. What I'm seeing coming out of Marvel Comics is women, 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 women. I mean, there's just no other way to describe it. Now, a lot of the guys online describe that as progressive and woke, and it is. But that's also very a female-centric stance, the wokeness, the progressivism. It's very female-centric. It's very nurturing. Studies have shown that women tend to be on the left side of politics. There's a reason for that. Because the further you go left, the more, in theory, nurturing, motherly the politics get. Because socialists want to take care of everybody. We want to take care of you. We want to give you health care. We're going to take care of you. Don't you worry. That is a very female-centric, that's a very motherly way of looking at things. And continuing down that path, you get communism. Oh, don't worry, I'm going to give you a job. I'm going to give you money. And if you do something wrong, we'll punish you, but don't worry, we'll take care of everything. It's a very motherly concept. Men are more competitive. They want to see people compete against each other. And that, in business, is more healthy. Competition is healthy in business. It weeds out the bad product. It drives down prices for the consumer, and you get better service. So, unfortunately, I think putting a lot of women in charge has swung the pendulum too far, because it wasn't just some women in the mix influencing things. We now have women in charge. And because they see it as, wow, we're finally in charge. Everybody get out of the way. Get out of the way, men. We're going to do things completely different. It's a little bit like when George W. Bush took over the White House, right? Like, a lot of what he said was, his father was president, and he didn't want to let the neocons in because he called them the crazies. And what did George W. do? I'm going to get those crazies because my dad didn't want them. I'm going to show him. He brought on the neocons in to F things up. A lot of this feels that way. A lot of the Marvel Comics decisions feel like, we're going to show you men how it's done. We're going to bring all the ladies here, and we're going to put pink curtains up and flowers, and we're going to decorate the bathroom. Marvel Comics is going to have all these woke characters, and we'll show you. Except that's not what comics are. Except you've taken it way too far. Way too far. You've destroyed Marvel Comics. I was going to say you're destroying Marvel Comics, but really it's destroyed. It's gone. And men are, upset. They aren't buying the new stuff. They actively, and I haven't been to shows recently. I've been to shows. I go to comic book stores. I know this crowd. They're not happy. And they're all men, by the way. 99% of them. Yeah, there's a handful of women show up to shows. I'm here with my boyfriend. He likes this stuff. That's 90% of the women I talk to at comic book conventions. Hey, you want to check out my books? Oh, no, I don't read these. I'm just here with my boyfriend. I'm just here with my husband. I'm just here with my kids. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't expect them to like my stuff. It is male-centric. But, the women running Marvel Comics, they don't go to these shows or they don't care. They're running Marvel Comics into the ground, essentially for vanity, and as the Fourth Age guys puts it. But I would go that one step further. It's not just the creations, although that's clearly evident in the creative end, but it's also in the way they run their business. It's vanity to continue to do things while you're losing money and readership. That is the absolute height of vanity. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't have any special insight there, but you can see that the sales are going down. And you can see that they're bringing back failed characters again and again and again. Well, mommy knows what's best for you, dear. I don't really like reading America Chavez, Mom. Oh, okay. Well, you don't have to read it after issue 7. And a couple weeks later, why don't you read American Chavez one more time? It's a stubbornness, too, that I think is very pervasive. Now, there's stubbornness in men, but I think the stubbornness in women they're a little more invested in this because they've kind of put it on themselves that if they fail, they're failing for women in comics. And unfortunately, because they've taken these very sort of strong lefty feminist stances, they've created that for themselves. The men didn't do that. The men were just like, these comics suck. These comics aren't what I want. Give me the stuff I want. The response was, oh, you're just a toxic male who doesn't like feminism. They set that up. They made it about men and women. And now when we stop coming to the movies and buying the comics, they will blame us on the way out. That's a very toxic sort of male to female relationship playing itself out. But it's not us being toxic. We haven't changed. We just wanted comics with guys punching each other. It's all what we always wanted. It's what we had for decades. To come in and say, well, we'll show you, men. That was the first salvo. And to respond thereby by saying, well, you're a bunch of toxic bigots who are a bunch of misogynists. Well, that's on you. We didn't start this fight. We didn't want to fight. We just wanted our comics. We would have been happy to see women come to the comic book shops, but you should have made comics for them, not taken our comics and changed them to some girly time fashion show. Marvel has turned into the lifestyle brand. And that's part admin speak, but it's also part women speak. Oh, it's a lifestyle brand. No, comic books are not a lifestyle brand. If you knew anything about the lifestyle of comics, it's wearing old T-shirts and smelling like Cheetos while you hang out at a dusty old store talking about people who don't exist punching each other. That's the lifestyle. So, and we're all very well aware what the real lifestyle is. The Marvel Comics guys having a fashion historian come on and talk about the fashion of superheroes and who has the best hair. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If you take the average person outside of comics and you say, you know what comic books are, right? Oh, yeah, Spider-Man, Batman. You know what happens inside the comics, right? Yeah, they fight crime and stuff, right? Right. And then you showed them, well, here's what Marvel Comics is doing. Do you think this is smart? And they'd be like, what the hell is this? Who cares what Batman's hair is like? Who cares what Spider-Man's hair? Spider-Man's hair is under the thing. What is this? It would be absolutely alien to them. So, and if you ask them, well, who do you think did this? Like, I think the first thing they said, well, obviously it's a girl who came up with this idea, right? I mean, fashion, hair, relationships. It's not just progressive, it's women. It's kind of both. And it's not that all women are super progressive, but most of the progressives are women. And they're the driving force behind it. The driving force behind the progressive men is just they want to get laid by the progressive women. That's mostly their goal. They don't have the investment. They're not the ones that need to prove anything from a gender standpoint anyway. They don't have that much at stake. So you got these sort of white knights or whatever you want to call them, soy boys they call them. And you can see they're very weak. They're very, I think, put upon by the women. I mean, that new Warriors video, I still can't get over it. Daniel Kibblesmith standing there talking about Snowflake and Safe Space with a straight face. I mean, I just couldn't even do that with a straight face. I'd be laughing my ass off, like, what the F are we doing here? I would have stopped the camera right then. Like, this is a joke, right? This is a joke. We're not actually doing these characters, right? I thought this was all a gag. A guy who stands up and says that a guy in a character in a pink onesie with bright pink hair is a typical jock with a straight face. I mean, he's lying, or there's something. He is just crushed. His soul is like crushed. He's been meeting with these women like nonstop, 24/7. Yes, safe space. He's a typical jock. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I get paid, right? That's what I see from the outside in. I mean, it's just my opinion. I'm just making commentary, but so there needs to be a balance, and someone has to come in and tell these ladies, you've really effed the bed here. Marvel Comics is destroyed, and you are responsible, and you need to turn this boat around immediately. However, there's a huge risk in doing that. Somebody may shout, misogyny, I'm going to sue this place. And, Disney has deep pockets, and they don't really care, I don't think, about a tiny division like Marvel Comics. But who knows? Again, my opinion. It's just easier to let the whole thing die, which is, I think, what they're going to do. In the end, I think you're going to see these women blame everybody but themselves for the demise of Marvel Comics. And by the time they come out of it and look for work in other fields, they won't be finding it in comics, because by that point, comics will be remade. And, and I know a lot of female creators out there, they are appalled by, I think, what's happened at Marvel Comics. I don't think they're on board with this. If they were, they'd be buying the damn comics. I think they're bored with them. Just like, most women are bored by these soy boys, even though these soy boys are deluding themselves into thinking that they're going to have sex with these progressive women because, look how wonderful and progressive I am. So, I just wanted to make that addendum to the Fourth Age's video, which was just great. Just great. He's way more articulate than I am, but I felt like gender is playing a huge role in Marvel's demise. And there's no one, and I've seen this develop over publishing and in comics, especially over the last 10 years. It's just more and more women. And, dealing with women on the work front, to me, is very different than dealing with men on the work front. Because when I deal with men on the work front, even when I disagree with them, there's an idea that, I could say, oh man, are you kidding me? You effed this up. Oh, I didn't F it up. You're the effer. And then we can walk away and cool off and be fine and continue to work with each other. Whereas I feel like working with women, maybe not all women, but some women, that if I have even a tense conversation with them, I will be iced out forever. And I will never be forgiven for my perceived transgression against their person because of their feelings. And it's their feelings that are really, I think, throwing a monkey wrench into this, because it's their feelings that keep driving this idea of their success, which doesn't exist. The success in Marvel Comics isn't there. The success is, they need to keep feeling like they're doing a good job or they can't work, is my impression. So when they don't actually achieve success, the next move is just to lie to themselves and to lie to each other to keep propping each other up. Oh yeah, we're doing good. Well, we're doing so good. That's the impression I get from their comics, that they're so busy propping each other up under the guise of like, well, we have to prop up women creators. Oh, absolutely we do. Look at this other female creator I've just hired. Oh, she's so good. I know. Like, you didn't have to do that with men. You would look at their art and go, wow, this is really good. I think we should hire you. Can you do more art like this? Yeah. Okay, great. Whereas there's this sort of underlying message like, if women don't support other women, there's something wrong with them. So there's no room for criticism, it seems, other than the mildest sort. There's no room for true criticism like, well, this is a really dumb idea, or this doesn't speak to our audience. My own personal experience, and you could say, oh, that's just your personal experience. That doesn't hold true. It doesn't hold true for 100% of anything. But, I was in creative situations with women, and look, I'll be the first to admit I've done stupid things and I've made mistakes and it was bad. But, I remember a time when I was forced to confront some of my female colleagues in a creative endeavor. I won't say what one it was. And I basically sort of laid out the situation. Hey, you got to get your head screwed on straight. We got to do this, and it's got to be right. And we did it. The team did very well. And at the end of that, we came back and had a meeting about it. And the first thing the women did was say, how dare you talk to us that way? And that was a shame, because the team had finally sort of hit this level, I felt, of cohesion, and the talent that was being blocked by other things, by confronting them and sort of giving them a little shake and saying, no, 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 concentrate. It was just the thing we needed to achieve our goal, and we achieved it wonderfully. But that didn't matter to the women because I had talked to them in a tone that they didn't like. And I knew from that moment forward, my working relationship with them was poison. And I left their organization shortly thereafter because I knew there would be no more creative endeavors that we would trust each other ever again. Now, you might talk to them and get a different story, but I'm just saying there is a dynamic between men and women. And it's true, you can have too many men and it gets a little rowdy in the office when it's all guys. I just left a job that was, for most of my run, it was all guys. And certain things that happen in a room when there's all guys in the room, maybe that's inappropriate. I think the same thing happens with women. But the difference is, traditionally, men have been the workers. So we're used to working. And we have hundreds of thousands of years of experience working and understanding the work environment and how that pertains to our life and the people around us. Women don't. And dare I say, many of them refuse to learn. They refuse to learn. And I think the women, the soft millennial women who are running Marvel Comics are prime examples. They're not 100% of all women. I'm not saying that. But they are artsy. And artsy people tend to be soft. We tend to be a little softer than the average person. So when you combine that and combine with the fact, it's all women, they're not exactly great at taking responsibility and owning up for what the mistakes they made. They're just not. I've known women who tell me these amazing stories about guys just giving them apartments and cars and, just giving them things because they're pretty and nice and people laugh at their jokes. And for years, as long as they're pretty, they get that. I have news for those women. We're all lying to you because you're pretty and we want to have sex with you, in case you don't know. Let me confirm that for you. I think some of the women at Marvel Comics are kind of like that. I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm saying that they haven't seen the other side, and they won't see it until they're way past that age that people just, lady, get out of my way. When they're at that age, then it'll kind of all come home, and then it'll be like, oh. But, I understand living in that world must kind of warp you. And the expectation is, no, everything I do is great. I'm so funny. All my friends tell me. Every guy I talk to tells me. No, sweetie, you're pretty. And guys will say anything to talk to a pretty girl. Sorry. It's no way to gauge whether or not you're funny. You want to gauge whether or not you're funny? Put on a bunch of disguise and ugly yourself up and go to a comedy club and do a tight five. Then we'll know if you're funny. Then we'll know if you're talented. Put out a comic under a guy's name and see if anybody likes it. And go into a forum of nothing but guys. And then you'll get the real truth. But you're just deluding yourself, women of Marvel Comics. You're not doing well. And I think gender plays a role in that. I'm not saying it's all women. I'm not saying it's 100% to blame. I'm saying we cannot ignore the gender factor in the progressivism that's driving Marvel Comics. But anyhow, go check out The Fourth Age. He was way more articulate about it and didn't mention women. I just wanted to add that extra element. I don't know, because I'm an a-hole.